Okay, now, there you go. Sorry about that.
Okay. Welcome, friends and family. Welcome to the 6th day of Kwanzaa at the Ellis Den. We're coming live from our home, sharing our Kwanzaa practice with you all. So grateful to be here this morning. So I'll start with Habaragani.
Kuumba. And Kuumba means creativity. Reading directly from the Nguza Saba. To do always as much as we can, in the way we can, in order to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than we inherited it.
So creativity is the principle today. And so typically what happens with Kwanzaa is family gathers, or whoever's celebrating Kwanzaa together gathers, and everyone gets creative together and makes something. It can be, any kind of creation. And so I wanted to share an example of what we did one year for Kwanzaa. Oops, I almost blew that candle out with my breath. We created this jar together, and it has our initials on it, and we took paper and sticky stars and beads and created a gratitude jar to share in our home for a year. And so it's filled with little papers that, whenever something significant or something we're grateful for that we wanted to put into the jar, we would put it in the jar. So it's things like this that can be created together and expressing our creativity. So I've been thinking a lot about creativity. It's like, it is something that flows in the back of my mind about all the little things that I want to do and create. And it's so interesting because they are homemade type of things, original kinds of things that flow in me that I want to bring forward and create. And I don't always do it, interestingly enough. What about you?
Well, creativity on a personal level is huge for me, and I haven't. I make jewelry, I do woodworking, I do all kinds of things, and I have not done any of that stuff for, gosh, pretty much since I entered ministry, since I entered ministerial school. When I think about Kuumba, I think about it at the individual level and at the community level, and what kind of creative things can we do to leave our community better than we found it, to leave our world better than we found it. One of those things, is the courageous conversations, and just holding space for that, because it's interesting how many people say they want to have those, but how few people show up to have them. Because it is courageous and it is scary, and to hold space for that, and to support things like the thing that's evolving here in Nevada County with the community garden for the Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and to figure out how I can support that. And for me, to support it from really the foundational level, and not to even be seen as I support it, those kinds of things. To support the creative efforts of Black folks, and really they're the most resilient, creative people, and to speak up when I see that being appropriated. Because I remember when we were getting married, and our research on African dishes for our reception, only for both of us to have that most obvious aha moment that the Southern cooking I was raised with, that the Southern white culture claimed, is actually African cooking. And it made so much sense in that, duh, who was doing all the cooking moment. And so that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I think about creativity and I think about Kuumba, this principle for me is probably the most important principle this year that has really flowed around me. That I was thinking ahead about it, actually, and it's one of the things I want to pour myself into the actual action of living creativity, and so I'm pretty excited about that and all the different ways that can show up. And one of the things when you were talking about courageous conversations, I was thinking about how this other group that we created together morphed into something really quite amazing. And to be mindful that what you think it might be or how you think that's going to go, that when you open yourself to the united consciousness and spirit, that it can go a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And maybe not how you had envisioned it, and something yet still wants to express. Creativity is, I guess, if I think about purpose and I think about why I'm here, going back to our first principle, I think that's it. That there's some things that we each have come here to be and to express, and that it really is ours to do. So, yeah, that's what's coming up for me.
So what's one thing I could do to support you in flowing in the creativity that's calling you?
That's a really good question, and one for me to think about. And what a sweet, generous offer. Yeah, I think what comes up right away is just when I express that I want to do something or I'm going to do something. For one, for me to put it in the affirmative that I'm going to do it, and then just to smile and watch me do it. You know?
I can do that.
Yeah, yeah. What about you? That's a great question.
I'm moving back into that space of creativity. Organizing the back deck is one way to do that, and creating space where I can actually have the space to do the creative endeavors. And even as we're talking, to give recognition and give voice to all of the creativity that has happened since February of this year.
Mm-hmm.
Where we have really had to become incredibly creative just to navigate life and to move into a space of celebrating the creativity rather than focusing in how hard it's been and all of the negative components. It doesn't mean denying those, because they've certainly been real. But
Sure.
I'm very much aware that this is New Year's Eve, and there's a lot of rhetoric about something magical happening at 1 second after midnight. It's suddenly all of what we've been navigating is going to change, and I don't see that happening. If we have the power in us to actually do that, but we can do that anytime we choose. And so, I appreciate the conversation this morning about really where can we collectively, where can I, as part of the one, lean more into celebrating the creativity that we're already living.
Right. Exactly. Because, no matter what, in each moment we're creating.
Yeah.
And maybe it turns out that it's something that we don't want, right? But we're always creating. Always, because we're always choosing. And even if it's the same old thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. And I think the invitation with this principle today for each one of us is to step into our greatness, step into our creative juices and to flow in that, and to just allow that inner dialogue that's critiquing and telling us it isn't right and we shouldn't do it and whatever else, and to just take those steps and to move in what it is that's alive in us.
Mm-hmm.
Because the truth is, we're here to live.
Yeah.
That's our purpose. I was talking to somebody about that yesterday, and it reminded me of a long quote from Ernest Holmes, which I won't go into right this second. But basically, what he says is that really, we're not here to leave a legacy. We're not here to do all these things that we tell ourselves we're here to do. That really, while we're here, that we live. That's what's important, that we live. And I want to live joyfully. And that's how I associate creativity, is with great joy.
Mm-hmm.
Like that place where you're just lost in time, and you could just be doing that for days and just be so happy and realize, oh, I should stop and eat and maybe take a bath and all the basic things for the human body. But yeah, so I'm looking for, that's what I want to pull forward. So tonight, the contemplation, with it being New Year's Eve, yes, there's a part of me that still likes to think about that magical, something wonderful is going to happen at the stroke of midnight and all of that. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. And then there's a part of me, the responsible, more grown-up part of me, that goes, really? Really? Yeah. And I'm calling it the responsible, grown-up part of me, but it's a different part of me. And yeah, so I'll be in the flow of that today. And so I'm just going to invite you to consider this principle today and think about, what little thing you might want to create, whether it be a gratitude jar or a meal or a card for someone, or just something that you've been longing inside to bring out in physical form, to go ahead and do that. Yeah.
And so I'm going to recap. Day 1 was umoja, unity. To strive for and maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race. Kujichagulia, self-determination. To define ourselves, name ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves. Ujima, collective work and responsibility. To build and maintain our community together and make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems, and to solve them together. Ujama, cooperative economics. To build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses, and to profit from them together. Nia, to make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. And then today's Kuumba, to do always as much as we can in the way we can in order to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than when we inherited it. And so, just to dovetail onto Debra's invitation, what can you do, what can you be to make your community, this world, better than when we found it?
Blessed be.
Have a fabulous day.
Happy New Year's Eve, everybody. Have fun, be creative, love one another.
And be safe.
And be safe. And so it is.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you tomorrow.